Men, do you ever feel like you just can't get ahead? Like you're misunderstood? Like you have no one to talk to that truly hears you?
And women, are you often frustrated, hurt, and saddened in your relationships with the men in your life?
What if there were a community of like-minded men going through the same challenges that would support, hear, and understand what you're going through?
Working together in unison to create understanding, intimacy, and strong connections. That's the Way of the Illuminated Warrior.
Way of the Illuminated Warrior Talk Show is a forum of candid conversations for men and women about men. Being a man today is not always easy. Until now.
All right, welcome everyone. Today my guest on the Way of the Illuminated Warrior Talk Show is Christina Douglas. Christina is a certified cosmic coach, which I'm going to ask you about that cosmic thing. She's a personal life analyst. She's an intuitive relationship coach that helps her clients to listen and trust their own intuition, to feel and recognize their strengths, and to be confidently courageous to take next steps. Christina says, what we allow to continue will do so, and the changes we make to follow our own hearts can lead us to some very magical places if we let them. So welcome to the show, Christina.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Yes, I'm excited for this conversation because we have some things in common, and we've connected on on our business networking meetings, and I love your story. So before we dive into specifically what is a cosmic coach, I would really love for you to share your story because I think it's very relatable and really more and more common these days, some of the things that you've gone through, from what I'm hearing and all. So, I've been coaching men for a few decades now. And I know in the coaching that I do, it's been as effective as it has been, from the feedback that I've seen and heard from the guys because of all the things I've gone through in the past, especially the trials and tribulations, which has certainly helped me to grow into the fabulous, balanced, and well-adjusted young man I am today. So I want to invite you to share with the audience your personal journey and get as vulnerable as you feel comfortable with or not feeling comfortable with. How you found your higher self, and through those relationships that you've had, I know you've had experience with substances and got into, things that help you to grow. So if you could share that, how you ultimately got to be the wonderful person you are today would be great. So let's kick it off with that.
Okay. I mean, so there's so many different avenues that spiders from one another, right? That can go so many different rabbit trails. But in the start at the beginning, I guess, of as a child, growing up into a conservative home, a very Christian-based home. And on top of that, I was homeschooled all my life. So very sheltered in a sense and didn't know much of the world. And so, there was a lot of good things that came out of that part of my life. I got to really get, the sense of independence of what you could do. I wanted to be involved with other people. I wanted to have my own group of individuals that I could help. Even as a kid, I was, pretending I was a teacher, there was things that came from my childhood that was good. Very much sheltered though. And I was my late teens that I really started to sense myself wasn't what I was doing in a sense, and that there was more to the world, more to me. And through my teens, I was already speaking and being in front of women overseas and leading conferences, and so I was in this very unique position that not all are in, but it got me into being comfortable with other people and speaking what I believe. Now, what I believed evolved, right? And I think that's the way it really needs to be. You get input from other people and you listen to other people, really listen, not just to respond. That's something that came up today, actually, where you're listening to see what people are telling you and what are you hearing, what is different, and really allow that to really come in and really help evolve you to get you to that next level. What is feeling like truth? So for me, I'm always to this day inputting information and picking out the truth that feels like the truth meant for me. And so, I started to realize that I didn't just like, men, women, this whole thing of being married and having kids. It was, I fell in love with the soul, and I fell in love with a soul that happened to be a woman. And, it was a struggle with my family because my family did not believe that that was okay. So it was a further of my journey of really getting to listen to myself. I went through that whole battle of, well, they know what's best. You're struggling with that dynamic of, okay, my parents are that authority. They know, they've been there. They know what's best for me. But then you reach this point in your life where you are your authority, that you really have to take that step to say, well, I know what's best for me, even though a book may say, okay, because you're this type of person, like if you take a personality test or if you do these other different things, they try to put you in a box saying, well, then you must be this. That might lead you down a path to experiment with it, right? You might find some things that feel true, but the end all be all is you. You know yourself better and what works for you, who you are. And so there was this unraveling of who am I? And I went through this whole journey in my 20s of the struggle of listening to others because I thought they knew the answers and listening to myself. So that's why now I say I'm the intuitive relationship coach, because I have gone through that where you are intuitive creating that relationship with yourself and then also with others. So there's this whole step process that I have come to believe where you work through your relationship with yourself, who you are, and then you can work on the relationships out from there, the more intimate ones, then your friends, and then the others that you work with, and then the strangers, right? So there is this ripple effect that if you really listen to yourself, everything else out from there will get better. And there's the whole substance abuse that you really brought into, is because I struggled with losing my family in a sense. There was periods of years of not talking to them. There was, trying to work on me and heal myself and really being able to cope. And so that coping mechanism that I found is substances. A lot of people really could probably, feel the same, because it's so easy to just pick up the glass of wine or, do a little weed, whatever that is, right? And so,
Or a lot of weed. Who's to judge?
I mean, in the moment it helped, right? To me, weed, it really helped you relax, and it gave me the feeling of what it could feel like if I did this on my own. If the relaxing, the calm, release the anxiety, the stress, all that extra, I really started drinking because I wanted to feel calm. I wanted to feel like I could be open, that I could be confident, that I could be out with people and not be afraid or scared of what if they don't like me? What if, I'm awkward? So what? If you're awkward, if you are trying to figure it out, that's a part of life. But like, to be confident in who you are, what you're doing, even if it's just weird. If someone goes, "Oh man, what are you doing?" It's like, just me and me, I'm dancing or whatever. And so like, the substances is helping you do a thing that you want to accomplish. And then the journey for me became, how can I do that thing without the need of substances? How can I be happy with myself and, be in the emotions of the moment? If I'm upset, how can I deal with that without going to that thing, without running to the weed, without running to the alcohol? So there was an additional layer, because I had done it so much with alcohol that my health, literally, my body was like, no more. Like, you cannot. And so I was like, okay, this is the wake up call. I'm doing this. And the big thing is for me, I had to find my why. Why am I doing this? Why am I fighting so hard? Why is myself wanting to be with this woman? Why am I going to live my life with my wife? Why am I doing these things? If you know your why, it becomes so much easier, because then it's not, I can't do this. It's I don't do that. I don't have alcohol because I don't need it. I don't do weed because I can calm myself and I can inspire myself and have all these realizations by being in nature or riding a horse or whatever. Like, you have other ways to induce that feeling, that life. So I'm
Yeah.
going to stop there, but there's so much that I could just expound
Yeah,
on.
yeah. Well, I love that because I think it is a very relatable and a familiar story for a lot of us. I mean, similar to my story as far as growing up and being very shy and withdrawn, and I think if we all knew when we were young that most of us are going through this, it would be a lot easier. But like you're in your own little world and you don't realize like, hey, that dude looks so confident, but which meanwhile, he's going through whatever he's going through, just like I was, just like, everyone else, who's going through their own stuff because, we're influenced by our parents, by, school, by church, by teachers, whoever it is. And, it's not always the healthiest way of growing up. So I could relate to that. So when I was young, yeah, I did substances, alcohol and weed and um, whatever else I needed to get through to feel a little bit better and to feel bolder. And again, I think it's a very familiar story for people. And as I journey through my years, just trying to also find myself, I stopped doing that kind of stuff for recreation, which is well, that's actually not true. I still do it for recreation, but not to excess, which I did just to escape at the time,
Mm.
And then I really got into just like you were saying, like I wanted to know myself, like on the Temple of Delphi, it's like, to know thyself. To me, that's the ultimate, which is, it's probably for me at least going to be a lifelong journey to really,
Mm.
get to know myself. And I'm delving into like IFS, internal family systems work now, which is really getting to know all the parts of like I didn't know I had so many parts. I'm like schizophrenic, quadriphrenic, whatever. But it's a beautiful thing. It's a very challenging and difficult thing to really understand yourself. But when you understand yourself, then you could, put yourself out there in the world and just like you're doing, the coaching is helping others through the experiences that you've had because you're relatable and you're relating to and have empathy for, other people that have gone through this stuff. So I love that. I think that's awesome. So just to wrap up that little spiel, I had very good experiences with ayahuasca. And then in 2015, I had another really profound experience doing Vipassana meditation, which, it was a minimum that you do. It's a 10-day, they call it a retreat, but it's very, very challenging. It's silent, which is that was easy for me, but getting up at 4 in the morning through maybe 9 at night, just sitting and meditating and being present and experiencing yourself. And I had such a profound experience with that. I kept doing it, and I wasn't called to do psychedelics anymore to find that same result. So for me, I'm like, wow, kind of akin to what you were saying. Also, when you get to that place, you don't need, to have a substance to, get that feeling or find that elevated state. You could do, you really can. We can. I think all of us really, if we put the time and effort in and know and have the tools, we can find that space that we need. But it's challenging. It's definitely challenging. Yeah. So I love you said something else, which I know, like when you were younger, you observed a lot. So you
Mhm.
listened. You weren't speaking as much, but you observed a lot, which I think is such a valuable tool. And I'm sure in coaching also, you observe somebody, then you could relate and share. So speak a little bit about more like that, the power of really observing more and listening, and how that helps in your coaching in your life.
I mean, it's part of a lot of it is mindfulness,
Hmm.
being present. You learn a lot by watching people. And so as a kid, I used it as a tool of what not to do, you know, versus with the thing that people are accepting. Nowadays, it's more of being present of where people are and the things that they say. So like for me, I'm realizing that everyone doesn't think about you as much as you think they think about you.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
we take a lot of things personally. And a lot of my earlier part of my 20s, I was so defensive. I was like, but I am me and I got to tell you why. You got to understand me. And I fought for that. Like people were telling me that I was wrong and that I changed and I was trying to explain to them why and help. I wanted them to understand there was like such a need.
Mm.
And so like now I'm realizing that it's not up to them to really understand, as long as I understand. And if they want to understand, they'll come to me and ask me, I really want to understand. And it's not just me saying, listen to me, sit down, like, wait a minute, the heat of the moment of things. And so observing how someone feels, if they're really emotional, if they're just letting them be in that space, wait until they're receptive. Like that is really key in anything, in personal life, business life. Like if someone is on their rant, their mind is there, they're not listening. So observing when you can actually interject, when the timing is right. Like for me, I've had to cultivate the patience to allow my relationships, not only with myself, be ready, but others as well. So like for me, my journey of observing, okay, something is not right, and I need to figure out, well, what is it in me that is feeling this way? Why am I so anxious? Why am I stressed? Why do I feel like I have to change all the time? And I started listening to, other professionals, and I started investigating. So by being aware, you observe something, you aware of it now, and it's not, and you want to have the answer, right? You want it fixed, if you want that quick answer, that quick fix, but it's not there. It's a process. And so I've always wanted to have that answer. I wanted to have that recognition of, oh yeah, okay, now you're good. No, you gotta, it's a constant like process of working through it, understanding it. And as you unravel it, it actually becomes magic, because, after you've been working on it, even if you see that you've made progress, just keep going. If no one else sees it, it doesn't matter. All that matters is you. And just being able to say, okay, I'm working on this, I'm trying to understand this. And then as you are building, that clarity continues to come, that growth continues to come. The process itself, when you are observing, it just leads you down this journey of more yourself and more okay with yourself. You're getting rid of all the insecurities and the fears and the overthinking and all the other stuff that takes your energy away, and you're putting it into a more positive, productive thing for yourself. And in effect, it's for your life, so it's very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And being curious, which is a big tenet of IFS, but just in life anyway, being curious, asking questions, observing, and not always having to have the answers is really powerful. So you said taking things personally. I'm sure you're familiar with Miguel Ruiz's The Four Agreements, that book. Yeah, it's such a simple book, but it's really, really profound. So Don Miguel Ruiz is of the Toltec tradition, and I love what they say. One of their tenets is don't believe what I say. Which not to say like, oh, you're a liar, but question again, be curious, find out for yourself. Like I remember way back when studying Tai Chi and Qigong, one of the teachers, the Sifu, said, the map of the river is not the river. I could tell you, about the river. I could describe it. I could say, oh, the water was cold and it was this deep. But until you put your hand or your foot in there and experience that sensation for yourself, you don't know the river, And it's the same thing with life, same thing with having these experiences until you actually dive in, on a reckless abandon. You don't have that experience. So anyway, the Four Agreements, which one of them, like what you were speaking about, is that don't take things personally. And I think pretty much most of us do. We take things personally. So don't take things personally. Don't make assumptions. Those two out of the four, I think, are the ones that make us suffer the most, because so many instances, it's not what we think the person is thinking or even saying, or it's miscommunication, or it's not about us, it's about them, what they went through, what they're going through. So don't take it personally, don't make assumptions. And the other two are be impeccable with your words and give 100%, so they're four very simple things to do. And when we do them, I think life is better for everybody. So yeah, that's a great book. We'll be right back after this. Do you sometimes feel down, lost, or lonely?
Are your finances feeling sluggish? Can your relationships use a healthy tune-up? Don't fear, bro. Help is here. Experience the benefits of connecting with other men who are going through similar challenges. Be supported in our safe, sacred, and inspiring monthly telecircle with the Brotherhood of the Illuminated Warriors. Connect with Waska for one-on-one mentoring with the first session completely free. What have you got to lose? Check out illuminatedwarrior.com or send an email to waska@illuminatedwarrior.com. You're invited to step up your game and join us. You'll be glad you did.
You mentioned something before also, the why, the why, for me, I need to let go of the why sometimes because I torture myself. I've always been super inquisitive. I'm like, I want to know why, and sometimes we just ain't gonna know why, and I'm like, but I need to know why. So for me, part of my own personal journey has been let go of the why, man. Sometimes it's okay. I don't have to know, even though I want to know.
Mm.
That's been part of my process also. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bigger why. That's a
Yeah.
big picture why.
Capital
Yeah,
W. Yeah.
yeah. No, that's honestly the question people get asked when they're going into college or about to go into college is, "What are you gonna do? What are
Yeah.
you gonna do with your life?" And no one knows. Like,
Yeah. I still
I,
don't
I
know.
no, I went to college, yes, but I chose a degree that I knew I could get a job in. Like that is the extent
Yeah.
what happened. I took the experience though. I lived, in that moment of where I was, enjoyed where I was, but you were constantly evolving. And so like a couple years ago, when I had this turning point of, okay, I'm not happy where I am. Where do I want to go? It's just like, well, what is my purpose here? And what am I
Mm.
supposed to be doing? This is kind of like you're saying, the why. Like that was my big frustration is, what now? What am I supposed to be doing? It doesn't matter what are you supposed to be
No.
doing. What is being drawn to you and go there. You know?
Yeah, but
That
that's
is
isn't that
what
society and peer pressure and social norms are like you need to know what you're doing and so one of the things we worked on over the course of the Illuminated Warrior group what's my purpose and then I realized even trying to coach through that it's like what dudes you don't have to know your purpose like
mm,
what if your purpose is wake up every morning
mm,
decide to be happy be grateful, say some prayers or however you want us to do it. There's always something to be grateful for. So express some gratitude, be in
mm-hmm,
service as much as you can to others, because as much as you may say, well, I need this, I don't have this, I can't pay that bill, I feel like crap today. There's always something to be grateful for. And being in service to others, it comes back 10 or 100-fold. So what
mm,
if that is your purpose? Waking up, being grateful, being in service, and being happy. And let's see where that goes. And it's a win-win-win. So I've kind of let go of that, you got to find your sacred purpose, because hey, maybe that all your sacred purposes, or maybe all my sacred purpose is waking up and spreading love, and it sounds cliche or woo-woo, whatever, but maybe that's it. And even if it's not, if that's all I do every day, I think it's a pretty beautiful thing. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, a few years ago when I really got into this journey was around COVID times, you
Hmm.
know, where I wanted to do better for myself. I was at my biggest in my weight, was emotional eater and comforter. And so like I was the biggest I had ever been. And I knew something had to change. And so I wanted to work on myself. And so, part of the thing was what you're saying, waking up, be trying to be grateful, have those affirmations. I was like, you know, trying to spend my days as something, some piece of it that made me uplifted, that made me happy. And then a few years or a year later, probably, yeah, year, a little 2 years, I was like, okay, this is kind of how I gotten into the cosmic thing. So transition into that a little bit where there's this holistic approach where there's this chart for your astrology. If you're not familiar with it, there's 12 houses. And I started thinking, what if I purposefully spend a little time in each of those areas to have a holistic life? And so part of that is giving back to others. Part of it is giving back to yourself. Part of it is giving to family. Part of it is investing into your transformation in your power personally, into your intimate relationships, into communicating. And so it's just like you can really expand upon it. Like there's a lot that you can get into and kind of make sure that you are kind of, in a sense, well-rounded. And when you do that, I can say that I've gone really far into one area of my life and it burns you out. So I would say try to do things in moderation, especially if you're just starting out. Like don't go way overboard just because you feel like you haven't done it at all. Like if you have not gotten involved in your community and you go way overboard in your community, you're going to burn out. It's as if you went over working with your job. Burnout is a thing, right? You can do too much of a one thing. Then, but that's how substances is abused, right? You do too much of it and, it's abused. So think things in that area where you're not doing the thing just because you feel guilty or because you feel like you have to. There's these expectations put on us that, well, because you work for me, you now have to do what I say, basically feeling like you gave your autonomy away and now you have to like work 80 hours a week because they said they need you or because you have this thing that is due. Like it is so easy to give your power away and accept those expectations that they have, right? And so the expectations is another thing that I've really come to really look at. What am I expecting of another person? What are they expecting of me? Is it reasonable? Is it a need for boundaries? Also, is it a whole thing of, am I have an attachment to how something's going to turn out and now I'm not happy because it didn't come out like I wanted it to be? Like there's all kinds of things that, can come up that if we're paying attention to how we feel and listening to ourselves, we can learn from those patterns and we can make things better for ourselves in the future. We can learn from those things because I have been in that place where I was in a job that worked at one point 90 hours a week and it was not good. And that was another thing where I was not doing anything for myself. I literally would work, get up, I would eat, probably get on the couch and then drink and go to bed, do it all over again. Like it was not good. So it's really important to look at what are you doing? What would you like to be doing? And start infusing those things into your life. So that's a lot about what I did. Found out things, what I like. People would ask me, what do you like to do? And I'm like, watch movies. Like, I don't know. And so like, then I went on this journey of like, okay, what do I like to do? And start, figuring it out and start doing more of it if I actually did enjoy it,
Yeah.
But cosmically, I don't know if you want to go into what a cosmic coach is.
Well, I was going to ask you that. You kind of going getting into it, but yeah, because it's cosmic coach. I could guess what it is, but yeah, like how you came up with that. Even the galactic. I could guess it's the galaxy, but yeah, share a little bit about how you came up with that, what it means to you.
So, cosmic coach is really a title that someone else had coined. So when I had a coach myself who got into giving me a human design reading. Human design is a piece of astrology. It's made up of a bunch of things like chakra system, the tree of life, and some other things. And it gives you a view of yourself in a chart. And so for me, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So what is the astrology part of this? Because I've heard about astrology. And so this other coach did an astrology reading. And it really, so both the human design and astrology gave me a viewpoint of a self-discovery for me of this is who you are. This is kind of what, the feeling of your energy and your natural way of being. And so I was like, I love this. I love this because it gave me permission to just be who I was. I was trying to change something in myself.
Isn't it crazy? Natural. We need permission to be ourselves. This is the society we live in. We're judged. We're self-judged. We put so many strictures and pressure on ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. People say, well, this is how the norm is. This is how people are, and so you try to fit into that box because you want to be accepted, to be a part of the herd, right? But like, you're your own person. And so with people that, on the rise of expressing themselves that are not binary, non-binary, or they're straight, not straight, like trying to figure out, well, how am I and how do I present myself to the world? It can be so simple as like no one's the same. We might have similarities, and what we feel is right for us is not going to be right for someone else, but and also what I do may not work for someone else because we're not the same people. But in the big scheme of things, the charts themselves actually give you a window into, exploring for yourself, is this true about me? And so human design is still kind of relatively new in the sense of how old it is, and it's still an experiment of, you know does this work for you? Is this who you are? Take this and apply it to your life. And so the cosmic coaching of it, I got certified in reading an astrology chart and looking at, well, where's the planets in your chart? How do they interact together? And what does that produce into you as a person? How does that show up? And so it kind of helps you understand, well, how do I communicate? How do I relate to my family? How do I relate to others? How do I work? And so it can kind of help you understand, okay, naturally, when I am emotional, this is how I feel. And this is how I can deal with those emotions. So it kind of gives you the idea of when you're feeling the high, or the high expression is something, low expression. So instead of it being good, bad, we say this
Yeah.
is the high, this is the low. It's just what it is, it's not bad. And so you can be more aware of when you are feeling the high and the low, and work with it. And so for me, the cosmic coaching is about observing you at this natural base, and then letting yourself explore it
Mm.
and seeing how you can allow yourself to be who you are, and then also interact with those around you. So it's just something that really helped me, because now I can say I am more regulated emotionally. I'm more mature. Like, I don't allow the emotions of others to affect me as much, and I'm not, allowing my emotions to take control. Was one of the things when people put pressure on me, I would jump into a decision because they're wanting something from me and I got to do it now.
Yeah.
No, that I learned for myself that if I was feeling pressured, the best thing for me to say is, I will get back to you. Like,
Yeah.
I
Perfect.
just,
Yeah.
I need a moment. Like,
Yeah.
and, I dealt with this a lot with my family is, the control of wanting the thing when they want it and the way that they wanted it. And it kind of is the same thing with other people, with corporate, with work, with, friends. You kind of get to understand, kind of the situation and how you can handle things. And so it's more a way of living for me. You've got these things in your tool belt that you can pull out when you need it. And now it kind of almost becomes second nature to me now too,
Yeah.
because I constantly still listen to what's happening in the cosmos, and I listen to what's happening with the new moon, full moon, that kind of thing. And so
Yes.
just being aware of the energies around me, so as I go through my life, I'm not taken off guard as much. And even if I am, I can observe it and go,
Yeah.
okay, well, what is happening here? Um, but that's kind of the cosmic coaching side of it, where I really look at the charts and I look at, this is who I see you are. Does that click with you? And then, okay, this is how we can work with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's great. For myself, I've looked into all of that, and just because I'm, being curious. So, I tell people that think it's very woo-woo. Like one of my mentors, Ocean Fast Wolf, would say, don't take my word for it. Try it yourself. See how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's astrology or human design, or like the Gene Keys by Richard Rudd,
Mm-hmm.
I've looked into all that, and to me, it's like, wow, it's amazing how accurate, like the great majority of it actually is. Do I
True.
let it rule my life? No, but like you said, it's a tool or tools. Is it science, or is it just total coincidence that On full moons, there's a higher crime rate. This is not something that happens every month on a full moon, every once in a while, every blue moon. It happens like almost every full moon. The ancients, whoever it was, the pagans, all the people that really studied earth medicine, so to speak, they know about the rhythms of the tides and of the moon and how it affects us. So it's not really woo-woo stuff at all. It is based on scientific, data and all, if you look at it that way. But, again,
Hmm.
just check it out for yourself and feel it and see, how it could be of service. Because I find it interesting. Again, it doesn't rule my life, but also it does help, and it is a tool to know that, I'm a double Scorpio and I'm a double Leo, so I'm always right. And I need to be the one directing and need to be the one in charge, and everyone will be happy. Well, I'll be happy. So, but seriously, I think it does help to know thyself, and you can move forward from there. So I think it's great.
You know, everything around us affects us. So if you think about how the water literally reacts to the moon when it's full, versus when it's not. And then there's, if the water, the ocean is getting affected by the moon, why wouldn't we get affected by the moon? Because we're made of water too. And then it's like you think of a pebble going into the water and you see the ripples, like energy is all around us. So your energy, even over Zoom, we can feel each other. Like
Yeah.
there's the transmutation happening with the technology here. And then like even with my plants around me, like everything in our environment, the music they listen to, the radio waves, everything affects us.
Yeah.
And so, planets outside of the Earth are still going to affect us. And there's, been studies and studies and studies done on them that now that they can translate them into, okay, here's some things you can be thinking about in relation to those things. So it would be interesting if people started doing other different studies around things that are here on Earth. But like there is always something affecting us. And so for
Yeah.
me, that is kind of how I started thinking about astrology, is that, okay, there's truth here. What is the truth that I'm receiving from it that is helpful for me? So
Yeah.
that was all.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with the studies of Dr. Masaru Emoto. Um,
Mm.
so he passed a few years ago, but he took crystals. He would freeze water, and he did this in Great Lakes. He did this in small vessels of water. So he would freeze water and play classical, wonderful, rhythmic music to it. He would
Mm.
say, "I love you," write on it, gratitude, love, health, and healing. And the crystals that formed out of it were perfectly symmetrical. They were beautiful.
Mm.
He would do the opposite also. He would play like devil worshiping music and just write hate on a bottle of water, hate and death, whatever negative what we consider negative. And the same thing would happen with the crystals in the reverse. They would be asymmetrical and really I'll say ugly for lack of a better word, crystals as opposed to the beautiful symmetrical designed ones. So we're anywhere from 90 something percent to maybe 70 or 60%, depends how old we are. Water. We're made up of water.
Mm.
So it's the same thing. If it affects a body of water, we're living crystals. So how I speak to you, if I express gratitude and love and compassion and beautiful things to you, as opposed to being negative and saying ugly things to you, it's going to affect you as well. So just like you're saying, I mean, everything's energy. So
Mm.
that's a scientific study. He did that in a lake that was filled with algae-eating bacteria. All the good bacteria and the algae was being destroyed, and they did this in this lake and transmuted the energy of the lake. So there's some pretty beautiful studies
Cool.
that once again, it's like, how do we speak to ourselves?
Mhm.
Self-deprecating thoughts. Where's that going? And how do we speak to others? It makes a really big difference. I mean, I remember things that were said to me as a little boy that were really hurtful that have sat with me decades later. And I also remember, you know, people telling me they love me and being really compassionate to me. So, how we speak to and how we treat other people and treat ourselves is very profound on our health and our well-being as much as it is anything else. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about also a commonality we both have is in horses. So I went to school
Mhm.
for animal husbandry because I just love being around horses. So that got me into that whole world, and I still feel as much compassion and love for horses today as I did when I was a little boy. And I've had on the show also a good friend of mine, excuse me, Pam from up in New England, who runs a uh, um, a permaculture farm, but a draft horse rescue called Anamkara Farms. She's had as many as 30 something horses that have been put out to pasture, so to speak, that she has helped rehabilitate and keeps them working because horses, especially draft horses, love to feel useful and all. And she cited also that there have been scientific studies that horses, they may be standing in a field and you just think they're just standing there sleeping or vegging out on their feet, but they're actually, this has been measured, producing like a state of gamma as averse to alpha, beta, theta that we could also get into, which, obviously elevates our subconscious through those waves, and gamma being the highest one. I mean, they're it's measurable that they're just because they're not doing anything, they're just being.
Mhm.
There's great healing that could come out of that. So there's been equine therapy, which I'm sure I'm going to ask you to speak to also. Just being with horses, even if you're just being with them, you don't have to be riding them, you don't have to be feeding them, you don't have to be brushing them, but that's all good stuff. Also, they give off this gamma waves of higher consciousness, higher elevation. So it's they're very intense, sentient, beautiful beings. So I ask you to share your experiences with horses because I know you're very
Oh
into them as
gosh.
well.
Yeah, and I only got into being around horses in the last year. So I'm still relatively like new, but like I have seen leaps and bounds in myself. Like being able to like not only so I've been in like the working stance with them. So like help take care of them, making, doing some groundwork, and I've actually this year started writing, but being able to interact with them in general helped build my confidence too, because they can sense when you're scared, kind of a little bit like dogs and cats, right? Any other pet, where they can sense that insecurity, the fear. And
Mhm.
so if you're not confident, they're like, not going to listen, right? Because they're like, well, I know better. I'm the alpha dog and I'm going to go do what I want to do, you know? But like your presence with them, they can help heal that as well, where, they can stand there and be able to, like it's so interesting. Like you were talking about that gamma, it's definitely like, it's so hard to explain unless you experience it, because it's such like a peaceful feeling where you're in awe. And
Hmm.
it's just like this really interesting connection where for me, when I'm with them, I feel myself thinking more clearly. I feel myself, you know, not as worried about the world in a sense. Like I'm more present. Like I
Yeah.
automatically want to be there with them, and I want to, well, what is happening with them? How are you and how am I? And, it's just like, and out of the blue, sometimes I'll just feel emotional. And I didn't even realize I was feeling the way I was. And then it helps me to be able to process some things I didn't realize was bothering me. And it's just like, okay, where is this coming from? And then you're able to like really dive into some stuff and let it go. And then for me, it's just some magical experiences as I think back. And it's just, one of those things that I don't see myself not ever being around horses.
Mm.
It's just one of those things that when I'm just working around them, I have clarity. And like I can be literally just letting my thoughts go. And then I can let myself work through things and I'll find solutions without even really looking for them. It's just like, oh, okay, cool. nice, you know?
Yeah.
You know? So it's just really interesting, and it works differently for different people. And I think at first, if you're really afraid of them and you're stuck in that anxiety phase, just being able to be calmly with them is a huge feat. And
Yeah.
being able to be present, you know, because I think they're strong creatures. So like if
Yeah.
you know the damage that they can do, that creates that fear of being near them. And, you know, for me, I was a bit naive and had no idea, you know, so
Mm.
I just was up to him and I was like, oh, you're cool. You're a nice horse. And then as I went along with working with them, it's like, oh, wow, okay, you could do some damage. You know, they've bitten a little bit, some and different things,
Yeah.
and they could do some you know, things. But in general, if you would approach them in a humble manner, but in a connecting, confident way, it's just, I don't know, it's something you can cultivate that is a very, very cool thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I've thought about that as a screenplay. So, we live in Western North Carolina where there's a lot of black bears, which I'm from New York, Long Island. I don't know that I'll ever get used to being, so close to bears, like not intentionally in the wild. But like if you ever saw the movie The Birds by Alfred Hitchcock, the birds
Yeah.
go, so if these animals, decided that they wanted to rule the world, yes, we could take out our machine guns, our AKs, whatever, but they would easily, if it was like mano a mano, there's no way man is beating one of these creatures. So I thought it would be a wild story that they could do that, and maybe they,
Wow.
but they show us compassion, and I don't know, it's kind of like a metaphor, like the model in this world really is might is right. If I've got the power, then the little guy does not really have much, if any, power or say at all, because I need to get mine, and and that's the patriarchy which we've experienced for way, way too long. And so I'm all for having the animals take over and rule for a while, and if, like, they decide, well, here's the test, let's go, you and me, you get this little Swiss Army knife and I have my claws, and whatever happens happens. I
Oh
think we'll be,
Lord.
good movie, good, we'll see who survives. So it's not,
Yeah.
not the strongest man winds up standing, it's the most loving, compassionate man winds up standing. So anyway, that's a
Interesting.
possible
Yeah.
screenplay.
Yeah.
So, but I know relating to all this also, we're all, I know you're very into nature as well, which I know I get the
Mhm.
same kind of grounding and peaceful feeling from being out in nature, and again, where we live is such a great place to do that. So I always tell the guys also, hey man, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling stressed, go lay down on the earth, and Gaia, Mother Earth, can take anything. I mean, she's proven she can take anything that we're throwing at her, so let her take, and transmute the energy that's not working within your body. It's just, there's so many simple things that we could do that we don't always necessarily think about or know or do to get out in nature or be with the animals. And uh we could really ground ourselves and de-stress in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely was the beginning for me, nature. Like we started camping, getting out in tents. I mean, as simple as like going out for a walk more, going bike riding,
Yeah.
mostly walking though at the time. Bikes were not my thing. I couldn't do that for a minute. But like in general, just getting out into nature, like that's definitely a great way to start, even if it's in your neighborhood, like
Yeah.
getting out and walking, period, getting away from the busyness is definitely a great step because it's just like you said, grounding. It connects you, and it's somehow like it's just, I don't know the science of it, but it's definitely healing and helps you to move that energy, whatever's happening in you,
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, this has been a great conversation. So before we close, I want to ask you if there's anything left unsaid or anything else you'd like to share with the audience, or a tidbit of your cosmic coaching for the people. Put you on the
I
spot
know
there.
this is kind of like all over the place. That if anything was taken from this conversation, I would say to discover what you want, who you are, and letting yourself be that proudly. You have you're alive. You have this opportunity here to be you. So be you now, not later, don't wait until you feel like you're, more confident or whatever. You just start now, start somewhere, right? Just get out there. If you feel like you might have looked weird or said something off or created an awkward moment, whatever, like let it go. I would just say start now. And it's something that you will stumble. It's something that you'll continue to learn. It's something that will unfold, and let it. And the more you do it, the more you practice that, the better it will be and the easier it will get.
Beautiful. I love that. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Well, this has been wonderful, my friend. So if you'd like to, mention your website where people could contact you.
Yeah, so I have a website, the Galaxis Coach. It's actually inspired by Galaxis is my pup Galaxis, which is also German for galaxy. So you're right on point about galaxy. So it's the galaxiscoach.com. I have all the links there for if you want to set up an email to get a call going, or even schedule a call. That's out there as well. If there's any events happening, I try to put that out there too, not just what I'm doing, but others around in the area that might be beneficial. Beautiful. So keep an eye out for things that you might be interested in joining. And I would look forward to having a conversation.
Absolutely. Well, this has been wonderful, my friend. And so I'd like to end the show. Let's continue to illuminate our paths with love and kindness.
Yes, sir.
Visit IlluminatedWarrior.com if you'd like to go deeper and find out more about what's available within the Illuminated Warrior Men's Transformational Community. Tune in next time for more candid conversations for men and women about men on the Way of the Illuminated Warrior Talk Show. Until next time, illuminate your path with loving kindness.